Hello guys, and welcome to Autodesk Revit beginners tutorials here on my channel. Now this tutorial is mainly for beginners who are interested to learn the basics of using this software to carry out engineering and architectural designs. Autodesk Revit is one of the best and sophisticated software, just like AutoCAD and ArchiCAD, which can be used for modeling of 2D and 3D engineering and architectural designs. Now when you launch Autodesk Revit for the first time, depending on your version, your screen or your canvas is going to look like this, having the model project with options of opening an existing drawing or starting a new drawing, and then having thumbnails of project which we have worked on. And below here you also have the families project, also giving you an option of starting or opening an existing drawing and then starting a new drawing, also with thumbnails of some sample architectural families, system families and structural families in Autodesk Revit. So after launching the software, you have an option of opening an existing drawing or starting a new drawing, or even starting a new drawing using any of these construction or architectural or structural templates. Likewise with the family. So for instance, if we want to start a new model project, we can click on new, and then we have this windows pop up asking us to choose a template file which we prefer, and we can click down here to pick any of these template. For instance, we can click architectural template to start an architectural project. But before we start a new project, I'm going to open an existing drawing and make use of this to explain basically how the user interface of Autodesk Revit looks like. So to do that, I'm going to double click on this particular project which I have made in Autodesk Revit and use this particular project to explain how Autodesk Revit user interface looks like. So when you start a new project in Revit, or when you open an existing project in Revit, basically the user interface environment is going to look like this. So with the help of this project which I already made, I'm going to explain all the components that makes up the user interface of this very particular software. Now I'm going to switch over to the level 1, which is the floor plan, and then here is a floor plan of this very particular project. Now to explain the user interface of this software, we're going to start from the top here. At the top here we have what we call the title bar, and basically this holds the title of the project we are currently working on in Autodesk Revit. Now at the left side of this title bar we have the quick access toolbar. So this helps us to either save or open an existing drawing, or undo or redo any of the command. And then at the right side of this title bar we have the info bar, which we can be able to sign into Autodesk and then carry out some other informations. Now below this title bar we have the ribbon, and the ribbon here is made up of collections of different tabs such as the architecture, structure, and up to the modify tab. Now each of the tab is made of the collections of ribbons, made up of collections of panels, and each panel is a collections of tools which we can use in carrying out our drawings or designs in Autodesk Revit. Now below the ribbon here is what we call the option bar. Basically now it is looking blank, but if for instance we decide to pick the wall tool, and you can see that we have options that we can play around with this wall tool. So you have option of changing the location line either from wall center to core center, and other options as well. So from the options bar here, basically any tool we are working with at a point in time, it gives us an options of switching between different functions which that tool is used for. So this is the option bar. Now below this option bar we have a palette called the properties palette or the panel, and this basically displays informations of a tool we are currently working with. For instance, we have in the architecture here we have picked the wall tool, and you can see that we have here basic wall generic 200 millimeter square, which is the wall we just picked. And we can also click here to choose, different thickness of the wall which we want to use in this particular project. And if you go down, you can see that we have options of changing the location line. We also have options of changing the base constraint from level 1 to any of the levels. We also have the base offset and all information pertaining to this very particular tool which we picked in Autodesk Revit. Now below this also we have what we call the project browser. The project browser here helps us to access different views of our project or the designs we are carrying out in Autodesk Revit. So basically, the first we have the structural plans specifically for structural designs, and after that we have the floor plans, so we can access level 1, we can access level 2, we can access level 3, and then when we scroll down we have also the ceiling plans. We can access level 1 to level 4 of the ceiling plan. Likewise, we can also access the 3D views. For instance, if I click here, I can view this particular project in 3D. So this is a project which I made, and this is the 3D view of this very particular project. And also back to the properties browser, I can view different elevations. So if I click on the east, I can see the east elevation of this project. I can also see the north elevation, and likewise the south, the west, and so on. Then scrolling down again, we also have renderings. So here I can view renderings which I have made with this software, and then beyond that we have the legend, we have schedules and quantities, we have sheet families, and so on, which we shall consider later on in the course of this tutorial. So this is what the properties browser display in Autodesk Revit. Now back to the floor plan or level 1. And then here we have the main drawing window in Autodesk Revit, which we can be able to carry out our drawings in Autodesk. And on the main drawing windows here we have the elevation tags, both for the north, the south, east, and the west. So these are the elevations which we can be able to access or open from the properties bar here. Likewise, we can also create an elevation. We can add an elevation to this, and to do that we go to the view tab. Here we have an option for elevation. Click here and we click on elevation, and we can be able to place an elevation like this, and we escape, select the elevation, and we can modify this by rotating it. And also we can as well adjust the view of this elevation by dragging this line up to this level, and then also adjusting the view range. So when we are done with this, we can also double click to open the elevation. So basically, the elevation which we just created for this very project, we can see our project looking like this in Autodesk Revit. So here on the elevation in the properties browser, you can see elevation 1 and then -A. We can decide to rename this, or we can leave it as this. So this is how you can also add elevation tags to your drawing. So basically on the drawing windows here, you can carry out your drawings, and then you have the elevation tags also. Now after the elevation tags, we have the navigation panel. Now to explain the navigation panel properly, I'm going to change over to 3D window or 3D view. So on the 3D view here, we have the navigation panel, and we have the view cube. So on the view cube here, we can be able to switch, we can click and drag to rotate around from this side or from this side. We can choose to view from here, we can choose to view this side, we can choose to view from here, and we can also choose to view from the right, or we can choose to view from the top. We can also return to the home view using this home icon. And likewise, we have the navigation bar here. So on the 3D view, when we click on this navigation bar, we're going to have the navigation wheel. So here we have option to orbit. When we click on this orbit, we can orbit around and see our project. When we click on zoom, we can be able to zoom in and out of this project. We can also pan around the screen as we're working on this project. So this is basically the functions of the navigation. And also here we have customized zooming. We have zoom to in region, zoom out, zoom to fit, zoom out to fit, and all of that contained here. And over here we have the navigation panel, and then the scroll or the navigation wheel, and then we have the view cube over here, which all serve the purpose of navigating while we are making our drawings. And then below here we have the view control bar, which we can use to view our project in Autodesk Revit. And then we have the horizontal scroll bar, which can scroll left or right, and then we also have the vertical scroll bar, which you can scroll to the top or to the bottom. And we have different views. We can change the scale of what we are currently displaying. We can also change the detail level either to coarse or to medium. We can also change the visual display from wireframe, such as what we have here, or we can change to shaded, or we can change this to realistic, to have a realistic view of a project like this in AutoCAD. So this is basically what the view control tab does. You can control your views from the view control tab. Now below here is the status bar. So basically whatever you're doing in Autodesk Revit is going to be displayed on the status bar here. Now it should, in case you have any of these let's say properties bar or palette or project browser or even the view cube or any of these missing in your drawing, now you will go to the view tab on your ribbon, go to view tab, and over here you have the user interface, and from the user interface you have option you have this box which you can check either to display or to remove these properties from your user interface. For instance, if we uncheck the view cube and then return back, you could see that the view cube has disappeared from the drawing window. And if we go back and then check the view cube, we have the view cube added back again to our window. And again, if we click here and we uncheck the navigation bar, you could see that the navigation bar which was here has also disappeared. And going back again, checking this navigation bar, we have our navigation bar displayed back here. Likewise, we can turn off the project browser, and that is gone from here. We can then also turn it back on, and we can also turn off or turn on the properties. So the properties is gone from here. We can then turn it back on by clicking or checking that box. If in the process of drawing you have or you encounter any challenge, you couldn't find any of this palette or these windows, you can as well go to view tab in your ribbon and then go to user interface and then check look for any of this which is missing and make sure you have the box checked. So basically this is an introduction to the user interface of this very particular software. So a quick revision: this is the title, which was the title of the project. We have the quick access toolbar, we have the info bar, we have the ribbon having a collections of different tabs, and the tabs having different collections of panel, and each panel has different tools which you can make use of in your drawing. And then below the ribbon here is the option, which displays options of different tools you're using in Autodesk Revit. And then after that we have the properties, basically displaying the properties of objects or the tools which you are using in your design or in your drawing at a particular time. And then the project browser display or gives you options of changing from different view, from the floor plan view to the ceiling plan to the 3D views to the elevations, rendering, and every other views which you can access in your drawing while using Autodesk Revit. And then we have the main drawing window. And then when we switch to the floor plan, you can see that the main drawing window is where we draw our floor plan or we draw our designs or carry out our designs. And then on this we also have elevation tags both for the north, east, west, and the south. And after that we have the navigation. So going back to 3D view, we have the view cube, which we can use to view in 3D. We can use this to rotate to the left or to the right, and we also make use of the navigation wheel here to orbit, or we can also zoom in and out. We can also pan to move the screen to the left, to the right, or top or bottom as you so wish. And then we have the view control, which is just right below here. We can change the scale of our display, we can change the detail level from coarse to medium to fine. We can as well change the display from wireframe to hidden to shaded to realistic and so on. And then we have the navigation, the top and the bottom navigation. We have the horizontal navigation, which is we can use to navigate to the left or to the right. And then below here we have the status bar, which displays what is currently happening in Autodesk Revit. So this is an introduction to the user interface of Autodesk Revit. Now to proceed with showing you how to start a new project in Autodesk Revit, we're going to start a new project and see some of the basic settings which is needed for you when you're starting a new project with Autodesk Revit. Now, before we start a new project in Autodesk Revit, we also need to understand the user interface of Autodesk Revit when we are creating a family project. So basically what we have here was a model project, and now we need to know how the user interface of Autodesk Revit looks like when we are creating a family project. So I'm going to click on this close button to close the different views which we have opened so far, and then we're going to return back, and then open a families project. So click on no and I can close that. So basically this first user interface was for the model project. Now let's look at the user interface when we are creating a families project using this sample which we already have. So when we click on sample architecture family, we're going to wait for this to load, and this is a sample architecture family of a furniture that was created in the families project using Autodesk Revit. So basically you have the user interface looking almost the same. You have view cube also as in the model project, you have the properties, and you have the project browser. Basically they function the same just like in the model project. So also at the ribbon area here, you have the first one being the create tab. We have the insert, we have annotate, we have view, we have manage, and then at the top here we have the title of the family which we are creating at a particular point in time. Likewise, we have the quick access toolbar, we have the info bar here, and also we have the options bar. So basically here, whatever you have displayed in this or whatever you have displayed in the model project is the same thing with that of the families project. So when you understand how to work with the model project user interface, it's the same thing basically applied with the families project in Autodesk Revit. Now that we understand the user interface of the model project and then that of the families project, now let's see how we can start a new drawing in or start a new design in Autodesk Revit. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this to to close that family, and I want to start a new drawing or a new design in Autodesk Revit. And back to this open window, I'm going to click on new, and then from this window I have an option of choosing from different templates, and I intend to create an architectural design. So I'll click on architectural template and I'll go ahead, make sure on the create new here we have the project and not project template checked, and then go ahead and click on OK, and this will open a fresh working environment which we can start a new design or a new drawing with Autodesk Revit. Now when you're starting a new project in Autodesk Revit, there are some basics or fundamental settings which you are required to do before starting your drawing, and the first of them is your unit setting. And now to set your unit, you will go to the manage tab under the ribbon and click on manage, and over here you have this symbol and you have a display called project unit. So when you click on this, you have the project unit displayed. Alternatively, you can access that with the use of a shortcut key by typing UN on your keyboard. So you have this dialog box showing your project unit in Autodesk Revit pops up. So basically you have the common unit displayed first. So you can choose either to use the common or structural or heat, ventilation and air conditioning. You can use electrical, piping, or any of these, but basically we're going to keep the common units in use, and then we can change our settings from here. Now by default, Autodesk Revit's unit is set to millimeters, and we can click here to change either from millimeters to centimeters or to decimeters or any of this unit. And also we have an options of choosing the decimal places, so rounding of the decimal place either to 2 decimals, to 3 decimals, or to the nearest 1000 and so on. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to keep this at 0 decimal. We can also change the unit symbol, whether we want the unit symbol to be displayed alongside or we don't want it to be displayed alongside. And we have an option of suppressing trailing zeros. We also have an option of using digit grouping, and based on what you want, you can have this check or you can have this uncheck, and if you're satisfied with this, you can go ahead and click OK. And then for the area as well, you can click on this, change your area to square feet, square inches, square meter, square centimeter, and so on. And you have the same option either to increase the decimal place from 0 to 1 to 2, or even to the nearest 1000, nearest 100 or 10, and then also attaching the unit symbol or not, and then also suppress trailing zeros or even the unit digit grouping. So these are the basic settings which you can carry out or you can do in your unit setting. And majorly, or it is recommended that you make use of a uniform unit where you have, if your unit here is length here is set to millimeters, then your areas should be set to meter square and so on. So when you're done with the unit settings, you go ahead and click OK, and that is the first settings which you are required to do in Autodesk Revit. Now, after setting your units, the next thing to consider is the levels. So by default, Autodesk Revit opens with two levels, which is level 1 and level 2, and this can be renamed. You can right click on this and you have an option of renaming this level, but we're going to leave it at this. Now, assuming you're creating a story building and you need level 1 for the ground floor, level 2 for the first floor, and then you needed level 3 for your roof level or for whatever level. To do that, to add additional levels to that, we're going to click on this elevation. Double click on this elevation, and when we click on elevation, you could see that we have basically these two levels which we have in the plan. So we have level 1 at 0 level and level 2 at 4000 millimeters level, and we can adjust the height of this level by clicking on it. And first, it is locked, so we have to unlock this and then click on where we have the numbers. Let's say we are setting the level to 3000, and then we can press enter on a keyboard to activate the level or the change in the height of this level. Likewise, how do we create another level? Now, to create another level, the easiest way is right click on the canvas and you have this context menu, and move down you have an option for creating similar. So this will give you an option of creating a similar level, and from here we can trace up, click on this very particular point to have a start point, and then we can move towards the right and then click to have the end point there. So you could see that also we've added another level. So we now have level 1, level 2, level 3 in this very particular design. So we can as well change the height of this level as well, first by unlocking, and then you can double click and then change the distance. Let's say this should be 1000 or 3150 in height, and go ahead, press enter on the keyboard to accept the height of this level. So basically this is how you can add levels. So when we go back to the floor plan where we started initially, so you have 3 levels displayed now. We have level 1, we have level 2, we have level 3, and this is how you can create levels when you're starting your drawing in Autodesk Revit. Now, the next setting you can do in Autodesk Revit is the settings of the elevation. Now, by default, you have these 4 elevation tags displayed when you're starting your drawing, but for any reasons you want to include a new elevation tag, you can easily do that by going to view on the view tab in the ribbon area, and here you have the elevation. So you can click on elevation and you can click anywhere to have the elevation symbol placed, and you can click on it. You can click on this elevation and then you can rotate. You can also increase the view, from this very particular direction. So when you needed to have additional views or additional elevation tags in your designs, you can as well do that by going to the view tab under the ribbon and then click to add elevations. Now when we scroll down under the property bar, initially we are having east, north, south and west elevation, and this elevation which was just created, you can see it having elevation 1A as the tag or as the title of this very particular elevation. We can select this particular elevation and have it deleted from our project. Go ahead and click on OK, and you can see from the properties bar that that elevation has as well been deleted from our project. So that is the settings for elevations. The next thing to consider is your views. So when you're working in Autodesk Revit, most of the times you can encounter a challenge of having some views missing in your drawing. How do you go about it? Now, sometimes you could find out that the properties file or palette is not displayed, or the project browser is not displayed, or even your navigation bar or even your status bar or the view control or the status bar is not displayed. To be able to set that or to be able to display any of the missing windows, you can go to view tab again under the ribbon, and over here you have the user interface and you have options of displaying any of these items or any of these windows that are missing. For instance, if I uncheck this, you could see that the project browser is gone, and if I go back and then check this, you can see that our project browser is back. So these are some basic settings or some check-ins which you are to check when you're carrying out drawings or when you're starting a new project with Autodesk Revit. Now the last thing to check is your snap settings. The snap settings are very important in your drawing, which helps you make sure that your drawings are very accurate. Now to check the snap settings, again you go to the ribbon and click on the manage tab, and over here close to the material icon you have a smaller icon like that of a magnet, and that is named snaps. You can click on this and make sure that all the snap settings are checked on. We have endpoint, we have midpoint, we have nearest, and all of that here. Make sure they are all checked, and then you go ahead and click on OK. Now let's see how the snap settings work. For instance, if we go to architecture tab and we click on, say we want to create a floor, when we select architectural floor, and we can select any of these options and then click to create a floor. And if we now decide to draw another line from this point, and with the help of the snap settings, you could see that we could be able to target the endpoint of this very particular rectangle. We can also target the midpoint, so that is indicated with a rectangle, so this is the midpoint. We can also target the angles, so you have angles here at different angles. You can also target the extension lines when you have it completely vertical or when you have it horizontal. So with the help of this dashed line, you can also get a good drawing when you're using Autodesk Revit. So all this is achieved with the use of the snap settings, and that is why it is important to also make sure that that is set before you can start your project or your drawing in Autodesk Revit.